Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to tell you how you can grow your houseplant collection for free. Let's say you have a few plants, okay? I have a few plants surrounding me here. You're just like, I just can't afford to go out and buy more plants. Or I don't want to go out and buy more plants because I don't want to go into stores if I don't have to right now. Or it's cold where I'm at and I don't want to have plants shipped to me because you risk the fact of them dying in the mail. Let's propagate. If you're new here, I'm Nicole and I love to talk about plants on my channel. I see a lot of new faces, so welcome. I'm so happy you're here and that you want to stick around and you subscribed. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Give it a subscribe, okay? Like, I won't let you down. I won't. So today we're going to talk about how to grow your plant collection for free. And if you're new to the game, you may not know what I'm talking about. You may be like, what? Free? If you're old to the game and you've had plants for a while, you're probably like, oh, she's talking about propagating. And yes, I'm talking about propagating. I'm gonna do a little update propagation haul for you guys today. I snipped a few of my plants a couple weeks ago during Vlogmas, and I wanted to do an update a week later, but these stubborn plants in the wintertime in Chicago just didn't want to put on any roots yet. So now I finally have some growth, and I want to talk to all you newbies. If you're just getting into plants because of 2020, well, bless your heart, you made the right move. And I'm going to show you how to grow your plant collection for free if you already have a few plants. So what you do is you can propagate your plants. And by propagation, I mean you simply snip off a piece of your plant, pop it in water, and it will become a whole other plant, or it should become a whole other plant. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. Most of the time, it's fairly simple to propagate your plants. Let me take one of these plants as an example. Here's my Syngonium elbow that I propagated a few weeks ago. It's absolutely gorgeous. Love the markings on this plant. It actually just put out a new leaf. And look at these new roots it has. Look at that. Now, when I propagated it, or when I cut it, this is all it had in this spot. See those little kind of, they almost look like they're beginning to be aerial roots. These are called nodes. Nodes. Such a weird word. Like who thought that up? Node. If you cut it right below the node, if you stick that node in water, it should grow roots and become a whole other plant. I have another piece of this in the kitchen. That's exciting because when I found this out about 2 years ago, I was beside myself. It pretty much blew my mind that you can grow a plant from another plant. Because up here, for some reason, I was just thinking that you can only grow plants from seed. Like every plant, you can only grow from seed. Isn't that crazy? But I thought it. That's what I thought. Let's check out some of the plants I propagated last week. So this one is my Monstera Edinsoni, and these cuttings are finally starting to put some fat roots out. Let's be real. Like for it being in water, this is pretty good. I cut 3 pieces here. This is the first piece. Look at how beautiful these leaves are. So gorgeous. And now when I cut this plant, it was a pretty big plant. I was like, you know what? This needs to get pruned a little bit. Pruning your plants also helps to put out new growth on the mother plant. So it's not gonna hurt your plant by propagating. Check out these roots that it put out. Look at that. This is exactly 2 weeks from today, from when I'm filming this, is how much this plant has grown roots. Now, before you pot this up in soil or leca or your medium of choice, you want to make sure that there's a substantial root to plant ratio going on. I want to say maybe triple the size of these roots, and this should be okay to go into some water or some soil. Now, people may beg to differ with me. Some people may be like, hey, you could just stick that on in some leca right now or some soil right now, it'll be fine. And it might be fine. I just personally like to wait until there's a little bit more of a substantial root system before I stick it into a medium. That's the first cutting. This is the second cutting here. Look at that. That little root right there. This has a little bit of ways to go. Now, if you'll notice though, see how the nodes on this stem here, there was one here and there's one down here. Now this one was submerged in water the whole time, but the one up top is the one that gave me the root. Now this may very much form a root over time, it may not. And that's what I mean by sometimes you have success, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it takes a lot longer, depending on the plant. I got a root, that's all that matters. Here's another one, same deal. The roots down below, or the nodes down below didn't put out anything, and then this one's putting out something. So if you snip it and you only have one like node to work off of, and you only have that in your water, if after a few weeks you don't see anything, you may want to be like, let me take it up a little bit. And by that I mean, if you're working with a node that has a leaf attached to it, see right here, you can try to submerge this piece in water, but more than likely this will end up rotting if you do, because it's a leaf. So you want to kind of just take this leaf off and submerge this part in water and see if that node will give you some roots. There's multiple options here, is my point. There's my Edinsoni. Let's take a look at my Cebu Blue. Here is one. They take a little bit longer though to propagate in water. See that little tiny root down there? It's pushing it out. Once these get started, they usually go a little bit faster, but to get them to root sometimes takes a little bit of time. Has a small little nubbin on it right there. Nothing huge. These are going to be in water for a little bit. It's kind of crazy how easy it is to grow plants from your other plants. I mean, this is a great way for you to gift plants to people. Like if you want to gift plants to your mom, to your friends, to whoever. I'm dripping water all over my desk. Let's go on to my Monstera silta. Now this one is doing really well. Look at all those roots there. Now I would say maybe another few days and this should be ready to just pop right on into some medium. These leaves are so pretty, aren't they? Gorgeous. But this has a lot of nodes on it. And this whole thing was submerged. So I got roots from up here, from here, none from down here. So I might just snip that off. But look at that. You never know. You just never know with plants, you know? Now I prefer to propagate in water. You can propagate in sphagnum moss. You can propagate in perlite. You could propagate in soil. I just personally like to see my roots, which is why you're noticing mostly clear vessels. However, if you choose to go with a darker vessel, meaning light can't get in, it's more likely than not that the plant will propagate faster because roots are used to being in dark soil conditions or leca conditions where the roots don't get a lot of light. So they tend to grow a little faster, maybe a little thicker than plants that are being propagated in a clear vessel. I'm just a brat and I like to see my progress as we go. I mean, you can always just lift it up and see it, but like there's something about that is just, it's satisfying. It's a sense of accomplishment if you could see it. You know what I mean? Okay, now this is my Monstera constellation and I remember the day like it was yesterday. I snipped it and I was terrified, but I did it and I'm happy I did it because we got beautiful new root growth coming in here. Now this was a root already. It stopped at right about here. So it had a little root on it to begin with. This is all new down here. And then it's also branching out with some new roots there. And then I also feel a little node coming in there, which this, or not node, I'm sorry. This is gonna be another growth point. So that's gonna be another leaf that pops in out of there. I'm really excited about this because I have one, well, I had one Monstera constellation and now I have two, which is so fun. I'm just excited because I really wanna gift some people some more uncommon houseplants, you know? People that can't get their hands on them because that's what was done for me. So now let's move on to my regular old Monstera deliciosa. I love Monstera deliciosa. I feel like you know, at first they were a little too hyped up and overrated, but they're so easy to grow, you guys. They really are. You just got to give them enough light. I had a big one and I was not giving it enough light and it wasn't growing for me, and I got really frustrated. I chopped it up and now it's in like 5 different plants and it's doing so well because I gave it more light. Like, come on, Nicole. Anywho, this was a gigantic aerial root that was growing out of it. Now, an aerial root is different than a soil root. An aerial root literally grows in the air. Straight out of the plant, it'll come right out of the plant. You may see some Monstera deliciosas with these long aerial roots. Some people love them, some people hate them. I don't mind them, so I just leave them alone. But I decided to chop this and stick the aerial root part into some water to see what it would do, because I never did that before. And sure enough, look at that. So this was the aerial root, this darker piece of root here. It's growing some roots off the side of the root. And then down here, it's extending. It keeps on growing, which I think is so fun that you can I literally just created a new plant. So this isn't fitting in my jar very well anymore, so I think this is gonna go in soil pretty soon before it falls out of there. Now here's one that I wanna talk about that's it's not doing that great. This is my Raphael tetrasperma, and while it has a growth point coming in up here, can we all see that? Like, that's definitely a leaf coming in there. This isn't doing well. This had root rot, and I took all the root rot off. I cut off the bottom piece, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it some space. I have 2 open nodes here, and I was like, I'm gonna put them in water and see if they root. It's been 2 weeks. It hasn't happened yet. But Raphael tetrasperma do take a little time to root in water from what I've seen in the past. So I'm not giving up hope, but I'm just not seeing anything yet. I don't know. But I mean, it's popping out a new leaf. So like, what are you doing? What's your deal? So it's also a really fun way to experiment with your plants and to see like what kinds of plants are harder or easier to root, what you prefer, leca, soil, sphagnum moss, perlite, water, whatever. Okay, I have a Hoya here. And now this one, if you can see, you can't really see the nodes on Hoya very easily. It pretty much just looks like leaves are just growing out of the stem. Well, that is the part where the roots will grow out of. So let's say this wasn't here and I just cut this and I wanted to propagate it. What I would do is I would just snip these 2 leaves off, just literally snip them off. And then you'd have this little chunk here, which is a node. There's 2 nodes actually, and roots would grow from there. So exciting. Next up is my Philodendron Mayo. Somebody tell me how to say that, because I don't know. Okay, I was a little worried about this one because I've never had this plant before. This was gifted to me, and it was just it had this long branch and it was kind of just branching off. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna propagate it and see, you know, if I can grow some roots. It wasn't for a while. It has this really pretty leaf on here. That's so pretty. But then it had a new leaf coming in and it was kind of like what's going on there? It doesn't look like it's doing that well. And it wasn't rooting. And now just yesterday I looked at it and it's putting out some roots. Very small ones, but they're there. So there's hope. There's a growth point up here too. And now I'm excited about it again. This one's weird though, because this one has like little nubs all over the stem. And like, I'm sure roots would grow out of all of those. See them all? Kind of creepy looking. Philodendron Mayo. Not saying that right. Okay, here's my Hoya Pubaclyx. This one has the tiniest, thinnest roots on it. I might put this in a grow box just to see if maybe the roots can get a little bit more substantial. When you root plants in water, the roots tend to be a little bit more on the thin side, not as strong as you would if you rooted it in sphagnum moss, soil, leca, because in those types of mediums, the roots have something to grip onto. That's what they like. They like to grow around stuff, orchid bark and leca, and they like to hug on to that stuff. In water, there's nothing for them to do that with. They're kind of just free flowing in the wind. flowing in the water. These are super thin. So I'm wondering if I put this in a grow box in some sphagnum moss, if it would do better. I do have a few cuttings that are in a grow box, and when I say grow box, it's pretty much just a Tupperware container that has a bunch of sphagnum moss in it, and I spritz the sphagnum moss every once in a while. I close the container, and roots grow, the plants grow like crazy in that, and they love it. So, I don't know. I still prefer the water method. Sometimes you just kind of have to keep an eye on your plants and see, well, maybe they prefer to be in a different medium, and just experiment with your plants. I feel like that's what I love most about it, is just kind of experimenting and knowing like it's just a plant. Like when you make that snip and you cut a plant up, it's like cutthroat, you know? You're like, ooh, what did I just do? You know, but you're creating a whole other plant. Now, some people use rooting hormone, which is just like a little jar of powder. You kind of dip the tip of your cutting into it, and then you put it in water, or then you put it in whatever medium you're propagating in, and people swear by that. I used it a few times and it does work. I just don't like the way that it makes like the water really murky. I just use my regular old tap water. So depending on where you live, you might be able to do the same thing. Do you guys like to propagate? I would love to open this conversation in the comments below. Let me know if you use sphagnum moss, perlite, water. Like, have you ever propagated? Are you nervous to propagate? Did this kind of ease your nerves a little bit? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to give this video a like, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.